Hey there, internet friends. Welcome back to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me once again, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on, everyone?
What's going on is, if you missed a couple weeks ago, we had to take last week off because all of our January episodes were already so long that we ran out of space on the Libsyn uploads. So we took last week off so we could kind of get the new refreshed February supply of gigabytes or whatever we got. And today we're going to kind of continue another annual tradition of ours. We did our best of stuff there in January. Now we're going to kind of look at the year ahead for a lot of our most anticipated games here in 2025. The way this is going to kind of break down, I'll throw timestamps for kind of these different buckets, is we're going to talk through kind of chronologically the games that have release dates already kind of locked in here, which most likely going to be like the first half of the year games. Then we've got a list of like TBA games that are slated to launch in 2025. Whether they'll hit that or not, who knows? But they don't have like firm dates. But we'll kind of talk through those. And then since we have the Switch 2 coming out here in the next few months, we're going to kind of give our like Switch 2 hopes and dreams and what we think is going to maybe hit that platform and what we're excited for potentially there. So check out the time codes for all those three things below. If you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Cam, I will throw it to you first to kick it off with one of your most anticipated upcoming releases. Or, as we touched on, I think we both have a couple like January releases. We're recording this February 1st that we just haven't gotten to yet.
Yep, especially since like a lot of my opportunities to play these games is going to be through Game Pass.
Sure.
And that's locked in here, or it's something I need to start here so I could make sure it was in my library for my Backbone xCloud later. My first one is going to be one of those, and that's Citizen Sleeper 2.
Mm-hmm.
Citizen Sleeper was my number 2 game of the year in 2022. I wrote about it in a way that I think was the writing in that game, it has no voice acting, very minimal music and effects in that game, and it's mostly done through static artwork. And in 2022, especially, for that to take out what was a murderer's row of excellent games, including at the time I was favoring Overwatch 2 at the time before everything came out about that. But the only game that beat Citizen Sleeper 2 was Elden Ring, because just the breadth of content that game provides is just impossible to beat. When it comes to Citizen Sleeper, this is a game that you are a sleeper. You are basically a piece of property owned by a corporation that has full sentience because you have the consciousness of a person that they have put on ice. They've cryogenically frozen the real you, and the you that you are is just the digital brain of that person that's frozen. And until you are retrieved and the contract is fulfilled, that person will remain frozen. So by choosing yourself over your original self, you are making a selfish decision right out of the gate. But it's to escape essentially slave labor. And so it has, like, from the get-go, you have a moral dilemma of, you are not really human. But what does it mean to not be human, but still have the desire and will to live? And when you end up on this satellite called the Eye, it's this massive satellite, kind of like space colony out there. And it is like the corporation that owned it went under, and this place kind of like has become sort of a like shadow city, like a Kowloon, which was like the shadow city that was on the border between Hong Kong and the rest of China. And because it was in this like gray area zone, nobody had jurisdiction over it. China didn't want to claim it. British didn't want to claim it. So it was its own independent city. I might be misremembering the name of I'm guessing you're looking up the name of the city to make sure that I'm being factual about it, or no?
Well, I feel like I know something recently that was like Kowloon Knights. No, yeah, it's a game company. Kowloon Knights is a video game fund that does like independent game stuff. I don't know if that's the name of the city that you're actually thinking about, but let's not get hung up on this.
Yeah, sorry.
That's a niche detail for Citizen Sleeper 2.
If you are familiar with the walled city of Kowloon, you know that it's like lawless, essentially, and run by only people who have strength and power. and you, as somebody who's very powerless, end up in this satellite, this colony, and you have to kind of make your way through it and also at the same time, because you are meant to be a temporary person, your body is on constant deterioration. And so you have to find a way to get the solution that the company provides to you, would normally provide to you, to keep yourself alive and without falling apart. So you are like a biomechanical creature that is trying to survive in this very lawless space town, basically. And you have a tracker in your head that they're using to track you. It's this entire story that, and the thing about it is like you are a piece that is important, but what's really amazing is the stories around you. You have these stories that feel and touch on the ideas of power and privilege, of immigrants, of what does it mean to be part of a community? What does it mean to be a refugee? What does it mean to be willing to walk away from there's a story of Lem and Mina, who are this father-daughter who you meet and you can befriend and you can become very attached to both of them. And they get to a point where like you let them go. Like there's a slight spoilers for a game that honestly just play it anyway. I don't care.
A lot of people are. Saw the reviews of Citizen Sleeper 2 being so buzzworthy this week, and I saw that the Citizen Sleeper company basically posted something about like, hey, we have our third highest concurrence playing like Citizen Sleeper 1 on Steam only after launch and after like the localization release or something like that.
Yeah, it's truly a phenomenal game. The writing in it is downright brilliant. Not just in like, oh, it's really good writing. The world they've built is despotic and terrible and awful, and makes you feel like this is just like everything is like not even just on this called the Eye, not just the Eye, but everywhere else in this universe is awful. But it also injects these moments of hope and camaraderie and grit and determination and triumph that feel deeply personal to you. Like playing this game for the first time, I would play it and then go to sleep and wake up thinking I was the sleeper on the Eye. Like it was a world I immersed myself in unintentionally. And the only thing that really brings you in is the writing, and it's absolutely brilliant. I cannot wait to sink my teeth into Citizen Sleeper 2. It is a game that I have been looking forward to since the end of Citizen Sleeper 1, and I finished all the DLC for it. I was like, please tell me a sequel's coming out, and sure enough, they announced it a while ago. But it's been on my list of games I've been excited to play. I wish that I had known that they had been sending out codes when they were, because I missed my chance to get a code for a review, which is fine because now I get to enjoy it when it's out in full, and I'm really excited to. So that's my first game that I'm very excited about for 2025.
Yeah, and just for anybody following along, that was released January 31st. So yeah,
literally
yesterday as we are recording this.
Yep.
So it's out there for you now if you want to jump in and check that out. Is that that's on it came to everything, right? It didn't just only launch on Steam.
Let me double check, but I believe it came out on. Citizen Sleeper 2 came out on PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, and Mac OS and Windows. So there you go.
Yeah, okay. Cool. Yeah, Citizen Sleeper 2, Starward Vector. Gotta throw the subtitle in there.
Yep. I will also say from what I've heard from a couple people's reviews, if you're like, oh, I played the first one, but is it just going to be more of the same? And it's like, no, it's going to be a very different kind of story. Still centered around the same sort of themes of being a sleeper and what does that indicate and what does that implicate you in. But very much different than the kind of story that the crux and the hooks of the stories are going to be very different than they were before. So I'm very excited about it.
Cool. Yeah, double check. Okay. Cool. Well, my first game, also releasing or having released January 31st, the first items on my list are the Sims and Sims 2 re-releases that EA just put out yesterday. As somebody who was in high school when The Sims originally came out and poured so much time in my this would have been like junior, senior year, I think, of high school. Bought like every one of the expansion packs. These collections include all of their kind of expansion packs. I fell off during The Sims 3 largely because my college PC at the time was just like, hey, I'm a broke ass college student. I'm just like, it's just enough to get by and has like Word and stuff on it. So I was not like focused on gaming stuff. Like I had Sims 3 like on disc, and it would barely run on my PC. So it never stayed in my repertoire. And then Sims 4 came out and got a lot of like trash early on because, as they had done so many times before, it was like they ripped so many things out of the game that they were going to like resell in future packs and stuff. And so and even looking at like Steam now and being like, if I wanted to buy everything for The Sims 4, it's like a $900 bundle, and that's with a shit ton of stuff on sale, half off or whatever. It's like, that's insane. It's a 10-year game at this point or whatever, but still, it like the nice simple, hey, here's $20 for all of the original Sims stuff, $30 for all of the Sims 2 stuff, or you can buy like a bundle for $40, I think, and get both games kind of in their entirety. I'm very much looking forward to, at some point this year, jumping back into those games and kind of having like a nice little nostalgia hit. Preliminary like look in particular in like Steam reviews, there are a lot of people pissed off that Sims 2 especially is basically just like the barest bones of a re-release, and like it still buggy in a lot of ways that like never got addressed or anything. Or if they did get addressed, I saw a few people posting like, oh, they did patch something in, but it was like a fan made patch and they didn't get credit for fixing your game kind of thing.
Well, yeah. Okay.
So EA being EA bullshit is kind of the theme of the day there. But like, I, as somebody who never like was concerned about bugs or anything like that, I'm still just gonna have fun. And also shout out to the announced trailer for this that like is a live action trailer, but they hit on so many Simsisms, and I like about a minute into the trailer, I'm like, oh, at some point they gotta pull the ladder out of a pool, and sure enough, they absolutely do. and you watch somebody, because he's got like the Grim Reaper coming around and stuff like that, and somebody gets abducted by aliens, and it's like, as somebody who, the most common way that I played through the Sims games was I would load myself up with cash with cheats and then just build like dream houses and stuff like that. I was very much like the architect type of player in those games. I fully expect to, jump in and do that again. But I also did have a few good times of like, I'm just going to play as like broke Trevor and work my way up. Get like, do it without cheats, and like get a job and like slowly add, to my house, or build up savings and then go buy a different lot and move my character over there and stuff like that.
I would move into like a fun neighborhood with like a lot of
the first Sims only had the one neighborhood.
Yeah, I only had the one neighborhood. So Sims 1 is, I was talking about like in general on Sims. Fun neighborhood with a lot of like younger people, like teens, 20s, etc.
Yeah.
Not teens, sorry.
Like the biggest
Sims 1 is
Sims 2, I remember like Sims 2 University. It's like, oh, now there's like a college, like now you've got, because Sims 2 adds like different age, groups, eras. And then, it added university. It was like, okay, now you're a college age person. You go off to the college campus for a while. And then when you graduate, you come back to the neighborhood and stuff.
For me, it was always, and this is the thing, is that like I would be like, oh no, my Sim is gay. Or, oh no, my Sim is making out with men and women. Crazy.
Shout out to our friend Jess Cogswell, who did a write-up over at GameSpot on like replaying The Sims, who had designed like, I think she had basically designed her family probably in The Sims 1, but there aren't relationships in The Sims 1. So like you throw 3 people into a house and Jess may have been making out with her kid or something like that because the game did not have those like dynamics. You couldn't build those relationships up yet. So I remember I had a friend in high school who like I introduced The Sims to and basically got her obsessed with The Sims. And because of how the expansion packs worked then, it's like once you've installed, a new expansion pack, you just need the disc for that latest expansion pack.
Yep.
And so I basically let her borrow all of my older expansion packs. So she had everything up through like the magic one or whatever. And I had whatever the last one, the magic one might've been the last one. I don't remember. I had like the last one and then she had like the next to last one. And she would tell me that she built like all of our group of friends, and it was pulling teeth for her to get like her sim or her boyfriend and her sim to actually like, make out in the game.
That's how it works.
And
that's how that game ended up being. Like, I made us together. It's like, oh, we hate each other in this game.
Yeah. It was like, maybe that was a foreshadowing precursor of like their marriage and dissolution of that marriage over the years in the future or something like that.
Well,
all told from Sims.
Yeah.
And apologies to them if that was the case or if that played any sort of role. But
I will say though, when it comes to building, I was very much like, I'm going to build these big houses, but it's like I never had cared or what I put into it. I was like, instead of that, I started building like just like small like studio like homes basically, and just like filling it with cool shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is way more effective. Although I learned you do need to have a separate bathroom because your sim will feel cramped and claustrophobic and want and like cry, sit in their own pee, lay down in their own pee and cry. And at that point, whenever that happened, I was like, you disgust me. Go swim. Take away the ladder.
Yeah.
Watch you.
Oh yeah.
Die.
I remember building like basically building a graveyard of like, all right, I'm going to just kill off a bunch of disposable Sims, throw them in the pool, pull the ladder out, and then I'm going to take their gravestones. And like, it was basically like, I'm going to, now Bella Goth is going to love me because she's going to come over and it's going to remind her of home or
Oh yeah, no, Bella Goth, yes, 100%.
Who is absolutely a character in the trailer that they did and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Bella Goth murdering her husband to force her to enter a relation, not force her, manipulate her to enter a relationship with me, was definitely on my list of things.
Anyway.
Accidentally killing her instead, leading to her husband making out with my I'm like, oh no, I'm young and impressionable, like, oh no, it's gay.
Yeah. The Sims 2, absolutely on my list of things to like, hey, I'm gonna have a fun nostalgic hit because like I still have, and when I loaded off all my like games over there, I still have all of my original Sims discs and even Sims 2 packs and stuff like that, but my computer doesn't have a disk drive, so I haven't had a way to really play those in years unless I wanted to get like an external thing and go through that whole rigmarole. And it's like, I'll just wait until they finally do something like this. And hey, they finally did. Yeah, it would have been nice if it had been like a proper remaster. And this is all because it's the like, I think this week is like the 25th anniversary of The Sims.
Fuck world, okay.
Yeah, right? I mean, well, like, again, I know that because I was playing it there in high school. So, shout out to The Sims and Sims 2. And I would have absolutely loved, like a lot of people, a like proper remaster as opposed to just like a loosest of ports, but I'll take what I can get to make this game easy to jump in and play again.
What's interesting is the console versions of The Sims ended up being so different kinds of games.
Yeah.
That if it, like, I was curious, I'm like, if you're doing The Sims, are you going to pull in? And they're not.
That's like I even looked, I was like, if they did nothing to it and like to help with the control scheme, I'm like, oh, this can't play well on Steam Deck. I didn't actually like double check and see, hey, is this like Steam Deck compatible? But I can't imagine it is. So this is absolutely something that I'll just be sitting here at my PC playing for the rarest of experiences. So,
but yeah, no, I remember because in the PS2,
we had like the Sims herbs, like the weird like not direct ports, but it was like, okay, well, we took the Sims style and here we've kind of made it a little console-y, but here's also like very specific things for console versions of this game.
Monkey Butler was, I don't know if that was ever in the original Sims in any of the expansions, but Monkey Butler kicked ass.
All right.
A friend of mine made us, the two of us, and we became musicians. He played guitar and became like a rock star, and I played piano and became like famed like concert pianist.
The Sims 1 was like one of the very rare occasions that I ever actually did like modding. Like
for sure.
In the simplest of terms, it was like, oh, I changed the color of furniture sets, and I would create my own like based on the color that I wanted the furniture set to be. And then I turned it into like fun little creative writing stuff, and I would write out like the descriptions of those pieces of furniture and stuff like that. And yeah, so very very loose modding there. Or this was also the era where other people who were much better at modding, like I remember there was a like 7 Deadly Sins website that had like Sims themed items around or it had Sims items themed around the 7 Deadly Sins, and they had like hacked into the game or whatever to make fun items and stuff like that. I just remember going around and finding like user generated content on those original Sims things, and I probably have even that. I like at some point saved those files to an old hard floppy disk because again before CD burning would have been the main course of doing something like that. So I probably have some of those floppy disks too. I was like, oh, I'm never going to be able to get those files off. But yeah, anyway, Sims and Sims 2, looking forward to jumping into that. So my next game on the list is a February 11th release. Do you have something coming out before that, Cam?
I did not attach dates to mine, so that's on me. I can also just pull up the list I pulled from, then that would tell me it anyway. So let me do that real quick here.
Well, if you do have something that comes up first, we can certainly circle back to you. But my February 11th game here is Civilization 7.
That's actually mine on my list, so we're good on that one.
Yeah.
I think let me double check to see if I had anything before.
Like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 would be the only potential thing I would maybe see from you. But yeah.
No, because I didn't like. I did not like the combat system in Deliverance 1, so I put it down after that.
Yeah. So yeah, Civilization 7 coming out February 11th. As a longtime Civilization fan, I probably really got into Civilization 2, but I like had Civilization 1 and have played every other one of the mainline games over the years. It's always something that like I fall into really hard for a while, and then I'm like, I need to pull myself away because I've stayed up. I've put way too many hours in way too short of a time, just getting sucked into Civilization, especially like when they started coming to console, which is and has been for many years my like dedicated place to play. Like when Civ 6 came to console in particular, and I think Civ 5 too, it was like, oh, I like booted those up and just lost weeks on whatever PlayStation I was playing those at the time. So the fact this one built with like that console release in mind is absolutely going to just suck up a whole bunch of my time on PlayStation here in a couple weeks. And it's my first like big new release of the year that I'm very excited to jump into. So it's Civilization. I haven't really followed along too much of what they're doing with it, but I did see something recently that's like, instead of being like one continuous thing where you're playing like from the start of time to like modern era, sounds like now they're kind of breaking it up into like 3 periods, and you like choose new leaders in each period. I'm like, oh, I'll be very curious to see how that plays out. If that dramatic like shift in the style of game works, or if I'm just gonna be like, I think I'm gonna go back and play Civ 6 to like scratch this itch for a little bit.
The thing about it though is that I'm very curious about is leaders are no longer tied to this specific civilizations either.
Sure. Yeah.
So you want to be like, hey, initial era, I want to do like America, like American leader, although most American leaders benefits don't come to like the third part of the game anyway. But how do you want to stack that up and how you want to mix and match it is very fascinating to me. The previews I was watching had them like basically build out like a Aztec empire with, I believe it was like the Korean general, like Korean leader for that. And so only a very few specific units even come along with you even. So if you've been building up militarily, you enter the next stage, you have to like rebuild your armies. And so I think one of the things it's going to do is let people who, I'm going to try this new strategy. It may not work out for me, but I'm going to try it, to have an opportunity to bounce back further. So it's not just a total steamroll for 12 hours, right?
Yeah.
Like that's their intention with that system, but like, I'm just fascinated by like the opportunities to mix and match.
I will also say I barely ever play Civilization on a difficulty above chieftain. So like
Fair.
it's always very much like I'm not in here to like drastically challenge myself. I'm in here to build out in crazy incredible cities, to like build everything in my cities, and eventually like I mean the most common win type I've probably done in recent years is like the culture victories, where it's like
Sure.
I want like my arts and culture scene to like dominate the world and take over, and I'll just get the win, you know, with those kinds of points. So but yeah, Civilization, I'll be very curious to see how the changes here shake out, to see if they breathe some new life into the franchise that I've played for God, I don't know, like it's forefront of my mind because I'm doing my big like epic like every game or every year of my life games. And I forget where the first Civilization falls, but Civilization 2, for example. Oh, yeah. Civilization 1 was 1991. So, like, yeah, this is a franchise almost 35 years that I've you know, had in some form or fashion. And just, can't wait to jump into this new one. So next game on my list there is a February 18th game. Do you have anything?
Let me double
there,
check
Cam?
date wise. February 18th. No, because I believe it's the same one.
Okay.
Avowed.
Avowed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We might have a lot of just similar games that we're
Sure.
both gonna.
I have no
shout
doubt.
out. So yeah, if it's on your list, I'll let you kind of take point on this one.
Sure. Avowed is a game that like it's coming from Obsidian. Because it was like leaving PlayStation Plus Premium soon. Obsidian's Outer Worlds. I was like, well, I'll just download that real quick, have it in my library on my PS5 at the very least. Because I believe I played through it. Initially, I played through it on Game Pass on PC. So Outer Worlds was awesome then. And I'm like, well, I really wonder, like, how is it holding up now? It's been a few years. And I've really fell back in love with Obsidian's writing. And so because this is also taking place in the Pillars of Eternity universe, so I loved Pillars of Eternity 1. I think it's one of the best like RPGs that we've had in like the last decade. Number 2, Deadfire, I was not the biggest fan of because I felt it was very disjointed. And its ending was like lackluster and like much to be desired from. A very disjointed game because they were doing like the going from island to island thing, and they just didn't keep it centralized enough as far as its plot goes. It felt very, very disjointed because of that, and just the ending just doesn't pay off because of it. Especially because like the ending is like no matter what choice you want to make, the ending's the ending no matter what. So like your decisions up to that point don't really matter. I'm like, that's really frustrating, and I didn't care for that. So I'm willing to give them another shot with Avowed to like really entice me into the Pillars of Eternity universe. And the fact that it's an action RPG, first person action RPG, definitely is giving me like a lot to hope from. So,
yeah, Avowed. As somebody who didn't play any of the Pillars of Eternity stuff, I'll be very curious to see like if, like, I guess how my experience will compare to yours probably ultimately, and it's probably just going to be like, oh, you're going to glean a lot more stuff from like the lore of the world or something, which would happen anyway, as you know, let's look at our Dragon Age experiences, for example. So like I'm mostly in it for like Obsidian, like they're a lot of fun in these kind of for first/third person action role-playing things, and I'm just here for another one. I appreciate that they moved it out of the busy like fall of last year. I wish the busy February hadn't gotten so busy with it. But it's definitely something I'm looking forward to putting some time into and jumping into, and checking out to see how it goes. Because the Outer Worlds was a lot of fun. Like far better of a Starfield experience than Starfield ended up being, in my opinion. And while I would love to see Obsidian go back and do something like a New Vegas 2 now that they're all in the Microsoft family, I am also Avowed has been on my radar for a long time just because Obsidian's got a good track record with this kind of stuff. So and people seem to be flying pretty high on it from previews and stuff. So
I will also say that there is a level of interest that I have in it because it is Here's the thing: would I love them to go back and do it? New Vegas 2, yes, but also the people who made New Vegas aren't all there anymore.
Sure.
And I think that
notably one of the New Vegas people actually did just come back to Obsidian.
Yeah.
Having worked at Gorilla on the Horizon games, but he did come back and immediately be like, "It's not New Vegas 2. That's not what I'm coming back to work on." He's like,
"I'm going out of my way right up front to be like, I'm not coming back because we want to do New Vegas 2. That's not what this is." I have a lot of love for Obsidian games just in general, but I think people who are looking for I don't know if we can ever capture what magic we had in New Vegas, so I'm not worried or I'm not really looking for that from them. So I'm not looking from that from Avowed, but I am excited to see what we get from it eventually. So we'll see.
Yeah. So next game on my list, only a few days later on February 21st, Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. I just finished replaying Infinite Dragon last night, or just beat Infinite Wealth last night. I'm still I'm now in the post game level grind in order to get the last trophy I need, which is basically get Kasuga up to level 70. And that's the last trophy I'll need for the platinum to get that again. Because for anybody that hasn't followed along, because I think I talked about it on a couple podcasts, this is my number 2 game of the year last year. And I played it on the PS5 version. And as I was sitting here looking for things to do here in January, I was like, oh, I have it on the PS4 version too. So I'm just going to go back and replay that game. And it started out as I really just want to do the Dendoku Island stuff again. But you have to play a bit of the game before you even get there. And then I got there and did that stuff. And I was like, all right, that was fun. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish the game and see it through and get the platinum again. Doing all that it has me very excited to jump back in. I'm wildly excited for a Majima-led game that we're going to get with this one that features ship combat, and it's going to be RGG Studio did Skull and Bones better than Skull and Bones, and they spent so goddamn long on that game, and it just came out and died. Somehow that studio takes on all sorts of wild stuff, and they're like, yeah, we're just gonna turn this thing that is a base core element of another key game, and we're just gonna turn that into a fun little side quest mini game in our thing, and just knock it out of the park. Like I said, with Dendoku Island, there's just a ton of fun in that, and so I can't wait to go flying around. I'll be curious, just because largely the action games have. The action combat just isn't my favorite thing of the Yakuza series.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm still interested to see just how bonkers and wild and silly this stuff gets. Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii there, February 21st. I already have the collector's edition pre-ordered, so I'm going to be rocking out Majima's eye patch, and maybe I'll do the last Let's Play series I really did was Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth last year, so maybe I'll dust off my my PS5 over here and play it in here and boot up the camera and play along my journey for that one too. But we'll see. No promises. It is probably my most anticipated game this year right now, just because of
I know
the absurdity and silliness of it. In addition to I know that at its core, there's probably also going to be a really gut wrenching, story behind how Majima lost his memory or whatever else is going on in Hawaii for Goro Majima. And the one of the biggest things I'll be curious about at launch is if it's going to have the English track, because I think I saw somewhere early on of the English dub is going to be released as a post-launch DLC, free DLC, but a post-launch patch. And I'm curious how post-launch that's going to be, because that's the other thing is especially with the Like a Dragon games where they've had the English language options, I much easier connect to that compared to having to read the subtitles and along the Japanese track. Plus, you got Matt Mercer as Goro Majima.
That's why I would be I think this is the one, especially if you we love Matt Mercer here at That Nerdy Site. So getting to hear Matt Mercer as that. See, this is the thing though. As somebody who played the original games with the Japanese dub, like the voices are so.
Yeah.
The Japanese voices are so hyper specific to those characters. Gosh, yeah, no, I'm trying to just think about like how do you, and I want to pull up his name so I don't like mess it up. But how do you hear Kiryu? Like how can Kiryu speak and you don't want to hear Takaya Kuroda's voice in its deep, like the deep voice that he has, that deep sexy voice that always makes my heart tremble with anticipation of just like this awesome character. I want to see this deep voiced man beat the shit out of people. That's what I want.
I think Young Yi is the English voice actor for Kiryu in the recent games. I'm double checking that now, but he does a very good job of it, and I like. Yeah, it's the weirdest part for me actually, as somebody who played Kiwami 1 and 2, Yakuza 0, and then has now gone in and played Yakuza 3 and 4, and The Man Who Erased His Name. But even The Man Who Erased His Name, I played in English. The weirdest bit ends up being like when I am doing like karaoke. The English like versions of the karaoke stuff is like, oh, these were very clearly done for like the Japanese, version of the karaoke, and the English is like the weirdest localization bit. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate and respect the original voice cast, but just my own personal taste in the same vein of like the anime stuff. I like having, if I don't have to have that extra like barrier to being able to just kind of enjoy the story, I just end up preferring the English cast.
You know what though? Here's the thing. I'm like, who is even the English voice actor for Kiryu? And it's a guy named Daryl Kurillo.
No.
Oh, sorry. No, he's not.
It's Young Yi.
Young Yi, yeah. In the most recent one. Sorry, I was looking it up, and he was the voice for Kiryu up until 2020.
Oh, okay.
So in the Like a Dragon series, I believe it is Young Yi. But this is kind of like which makes sense because if we were talking about that was like 2020 was Yakuza 6, I believe, and which is, if that's the case, then
2020 Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon.
Okay.
was the start of the Yakuza.
Then I wonder if
Like a
and then
Dragon
maybe they
switch.
recast him for and then okay. I mean, hey, it happens. All good. Though.
Yeah, because they're like they didn't have like an English voice cast in Yakuza 6, right? So
I don't
I'm
recall.
curious,
I never played those games with English. So I have.
I guess
no
I'm
idea.
curious where you're pulling your name
I pulled it
from.
up from just Wikipedia.
Okay.
And in the Cosmic Kiryu wiki, his English voice actors was Yakuza, and yeah, you're right because they didn't have English voices for that. So Yakuza and Yakuza Like a Dragon, he was originally that one. Yang Ye, The Man Who Erased His Name was his first one as the new voice actor for Kiryu.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, but yeah, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, just gonna have a fun bonkers off the wall time with that one. As the Yakuza Like a Dragon series has like quickly risen in my like favorite overall franchises ever series of things. So shout out to that. Do you have anything else here in February, Cam?
In February? No,
Yeah.
I believe I could say Monster Hunter's Wild, but that's not on my radar right now.
I've got Monster Hunter Wilds in like a potential, like if I find time. Again, I'll be very busy with Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza. So if I do jump into to Monster Hunter Wilds, it'll be like probably sometime after the fact.
I imagine,
it's very much like is this going to be the first Monster Hunter game that I jump into and give a shot? And we'll see. It's on my like I've got basically a few question marks after it of like maybe I'll try and find some time for it. And part of that's going to come down to like how good are reviews, what's the word of mouth on it, and all that stuff. Largely there will be an element of like, do they have a demo that I can play to see if like I'm actually interested in this vibe or not? And that'll probably actually be the biggest selling point of like, okay, if I can jump in and play like a demo of the game,
Yeah.
or if it's like on a Game Pass kind of thing, maybe I'll check it out there. Because yeah, I'm like, I don't know if I want to fully commit to a full price game for a game that I have no, previous actual history with.
I will say, as somebody who played the network test, really liked what I got out of the network test, but I also, like, looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, am I going to be done with Avowed by then? Sure. And then at that point, we're talking at, like, February 28th, last day of February, we're going to roll into the March releases here. And, like, I'm weighing out my time because I might still be in Avowed once we get into, like, I'm working again. I don't have, like, unlimited time to be dumping into games anymore. I'm working again, so that means, like, what does that also mean with my work schedule? So.
Sure. All right, so my next game is an early March game, so I'm pretty sure it's probably going to beat anything you have.
Yes, my next one is not going to show up till later in March. Okay. So
yeah, I have a couple here early March. First one releasing on March 4th, 2 Point Museum. This is the latest game from the 2 Point Studios that did 2 Point Hospital and then 2 Point Campus. And they are basically the like spiritual successors / like DNA of the old theme park and theme hospital Bullfrog games from, again, early in like my PC loving career. And yeah, I never played too much of 2 Point Campus. But yeah, I basically just want to jump back into their silly brand of sim like management style of things. So this is one I've actually already picked up on like pre-order because it's like a $30 game, $40 if you want like the deluxe edition stuff. So I've already pre-ordered it on PS5, and basically I'm just looking forward to jumping into that. Don't have a ton to say about it because I haven't really followed too much of development here, but yeah, it's basically like, hey, you're going to be building your own museums. The one of the elements of this one seems to be, hey, you're going to need to furnish your museums, so you're going to need to like send out archaeology expeditions and like have your people going out and like getting dinosaur exhibits or fossils or whatever else you're going to be bringing back into the museum. So yeah, it's a small one, but as a longtime fan of those theme park, theme hospital, and then into the 2 Point era of games, just wanted to give them a shout out as that hits on March 4th. My next one, a couple days later, March 6th, is going to be the Suikoden 1 and 2 HD remaster. Just as a, like, I attempted to jump into the Suikoden games when they, like, were put on PS Classics on, like, Vita. And much like with, like, Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes, just kind of got overwhelmed. There's just too many.
Yeah.
And I imagine that will still absolutely be the case. And the thing I will need to kind of walk into these games with is the idea of like, hey, maybe I shouldn't just try and get everything. I shouldn't try and 100% this thing because there's not going to be any point. I'm never going to be using all 100 of those characters.
Yeah.
Or however many there are. In these
there
games.
are 100 characters.
Yeah.
There are 100 characters. You do not need all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're doing the HD 2D kind of style of things. So this has very much been on my radar for a while of like, oh, I want to jump in. And actually, I don't think they're doing the proper HD 2D because I think that's like a Final Fantasy or Square Enix specific thing. But they're getting a remaster, and so they're on my radar to try and put some time into this year. Don't know if I'll hit them like right when that comes out. I might wait until like later in the year when it's a little quieter and a sale time kind of thing. Because as I said, February and March they're kind of busy, but we will see. So yeah. What do you have next on your March list there, Cam?
Next on my March list is going to be a game called, let's see here. Want to make sure that it's...
Do you have 2K25 WWE on your list?
I don't, because I like with anytime we're talking about WWE 2K games, I always want like I am never anticipating it because I'm always just waiting for like to see what that game comes out and looks like.
Is this a good one or is this a bad one that I should skip and just stick with the?
Or is this one the one I wait 6 months for and then it's on PS Plus?
Yeah,
like that was 2K24 for me. So
yeah.
For me, the next one is actually going to be Assassin's Creed Shadows on March 20th.
That's next on my list too, with the note of not going to pick it up on March 20th. This will probably be a like late in the year pickup because Ubisoft almost always throws huge discounts on their games a few months after launch. I'm sure this will be something that's like, $30 by the time we get to Black Friday. So that's probably my plan on it is wait until it's, significantly more on sale as opposed to picking up at launch. But yeah, it's one I'm looking forward to as well. So what has you excited for it? Given the fact that it's been delayed twice now.
Yeah. The thing that has me excited for it is I think it's the fact that it has been delayed twice. Mm-hmm. Like, it really seems a lot of Ubisoft inner workings appear from like rumors, and people who are inside the industry are talking about it, is if this game does not do well, we're likely looking at a portfolio spinoff for some key titles and IPs from Ubisoft to kind of like help balance whatever loss this could incur. So my hope is that it does well, and like I might be one of the people that's like, hey, we really got to support this game at launch just to do that. I'm totally fine if you want to wait for it, because that's sometimes the better option.
Yeah.
Always do what you can do with your pocketbook, and it's up to you to make the decision on how you want that to work.
My job is not to keep Ubisoft in business. Like,
yeah,
that decision, whether or not that happens, and I don't think anybody like. I think this is going to have to sell astronomically well to like right the ship at Ubisoft, and that ship has already kind of broken down and like just it's been the Titanic. It's been sinking. It's too hard to turn because they put way too much resources into their games. This will be a way too big of a game that will have cost them way too much that I don't see them ever like getting their money back here on Shadows. I think this is as much just trying to keep the brand alive to the next thing.
Yeah.
Especially because this is so much like a too little too late in terms of like how long people have wanted the Japanese Assassin's Creed game, and Ghost of Tsushima killed really like that desire for a lot of people. It was like, oh, well, PlayStation did it and did it better. So what's this going to do for me? The previews I'm seeing on this are all like, yeah, this is a Ubisoft game. Like it's if you didn't like Valhalla, this isn't gonna change your mind on the gameplay side of things.
Yeah,
like, you might like the story about this more, and the ideas and the themes, and it'll also be interesting to see how like the dual protagonists thing works here.
Yep. Because that's the thing that also interests me, is the idea that they're like, hey, you really want to kind of get that. What we've been doing with Valhalla and Odyssey and these other ones, you're going to like, that's the Yasuke content. If you want the more traditional approach to stealthing in, sneaking in, getting those like, stealth kills, auto kills, that's where you're going to want it with I forgot her name, but the Shinobi side of that. Like, that's we're trying to bridge the gameplay that people want from this franchise in a way that lets you do it the way you want to do it. And that's what interests me also, is like, how well can they bridge those two concepts of this more like the kind of like RPG-esque combat, action RPG-esque combat with Yasuke versus the...
Naoe is the
thank you.
Shinobi assassin.
Yeah. With the kind of traditional Assassin's Creed assassin with Naoe. Like, where is that going with it? How does it work? Also, the fact that this is during... it appears to be during the time when Yasuke is still a retainer for Oda Nobunaga, which is like, this is the thing too, is like, I have an interest in the story going on in this period of Japan.
I'm not gonna like, because I imagine, as they often do, this game will probably span a good length of time. So yes, what you've probably seen is one part of Yasuke's story, but we'll probably see the larger.
Well, I imagine we'll see the fall of the allies of Oda Nobunaga, and how that fallout happens. I'm very curious to see. Yasuke almost disappears after Oda Nobunaga's assassination. Yasuke, the last entry we have of Yasuke in like historical record, is that he was spared and not allowed to commit seppuku, which was like basically a dishonor to him. And I'm curious, where does that go? And Netflix did an anime of it a few years ago where they did it, but it went far, far more fantastical for my taste.
So
stop me right here. Yeah.
I'm going to stop you right here before you go down this rabbit hole, because I would say don't expect this to be like, fully historically accurate. They
No.
take plenty of liberties in their
Sure.
in their historical, like they like touching on historical time points, but from there it's like, especially in the more recent ones, like, they kind of go all over the place on these.
Well, where Origins went with like Julius Caesar and that sort of stuff, I'm hoping we get that same sort of treatment for Nobunaga and what we get going through that with this. That's my hope.
Yeah, the caveat I would say is I think Caesar's story much more universally known than Nobunaga.
Nobunaga.
Nobunaga. Thank you. I was like, I know I said the wrong name. I apologize.
Yeah, it's okay.
And I do not mean that to be like any sort of racially insensitive thing. I just don't know the.
No. It's okay. I could tell you misspoke. It was very easy to see the train of like, the train.
How I got to Nobunaga
yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever I said.
Because you also brought up Nawe earlier, and it's like, you throwing these names that you are not familiar with together is like. Yeah, misspeaking's easy, especially when it comes to broken up heavy consonant points.
Yeah.
In Nobunaga, that's fine.
The other big concern I have with this game is how ready Yves Guillemot seems to be to like kowtow to the absolutely shitty racist sides of gaming internet.
Oh yeah.
And the like basically coming out and being like, we're not trying to make a woke game or, all that kind of, it's like, go fuck yourself. Like, tell the story that your developers want to tell and let that be a diverse story. Don't come and be like, they didn't like our stuff because they don't want to like just let there be a black, protagonist here and tell them the story of why this character matters. Even if they were entirely fictional, that could still be a interesting story and one to tell. Don't let the pieces of shit on the internet win before the games even come out.
That's the thing also. And also, like, this is also a bigger problem with Ubisoft. Ubisoft shut down Ubisoft San Francisco last year, I think. They've been shutting down studios left and right as they're consolidating more and more, but... And
the massive team that worked on Star Wars Outlaws, or like one of the big teams that worked on Star Wars Outlaws, just shut down in the last week or so. Yeah.
We had earlier last year where, like, in the middle of the year, even though the game was nominated for Game of the Year, Prince of Persia's Lost Crowns team is just gone.
Yep.
And that's a French team too. Like, that's the crazy thing too. It's like you would think that a lot of times we think that the Ubisoft teams are like the core teams are the French teams and the Montreal teams. The fact that we lost a French team is like things are not going well for Ubisoft.
Yeah.
And like this, I think this is really where like, hey, how much time do you guys think you need to really hammer out this game? And so I'm hoping by the time it launches, like we will get that. We will get a great game. And I hope it does well for the sake of like, we know people who have or currently work.
We have friends that work at Ubisoft.
Yeah. I want them to keep having
jobs. I
jobs.
don't want them to be let go. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
Also, there's incredibly talented and amazing people all throughout Ubisoft that are suffering because of historical bad management, like upper management. Yves Guillemot is, whether it's the stuff like the Me Too related stuff that came out about certain people there, or just overall, just like really not great overhead like executives.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Yves Guillemot.
I still always go back to like letting the credits for Star Wars Outlaws roll for well over 30 minutes. And just being like, there's no way in hell this game, even if it had sold a copy for every single person that owns a PS5, I can't imagine that game would have made its money back because of just how many people poured resources into that game. It's like
it's an example,
Ubisoft has missed the realization of like they continue to want to pour hundreds of hours into their games or make their games, play for hundreds of hours, but very few people are interested in actually playing a Ubisoft game for hundreds of hours and doing that. And so they're just losing more and more of their market share as other companies come in and do a lot of the Ubisoft things better and in a 40-hour experience or a 50-hour experience where you can do everything and not feel like you've, wasted, a good chunk of your life. And I say that as somebody who platinumed Odyssey, who platinumed Valhalla and poured hundreds of hours into those games. I have no interest in doing that again here with Assassin's Creed Shadows, especially given how also historically buggy those other games have been at launch. That's another reason I'm interested in waiting until this probably settles. And yeah, hopefully the couple of delays they've already seen are trying to address that and trying to like preemptively continue to hack away at that QA list. But as somebody who couldn't get the platinum for Valhalla until like 4 or 5 months after it released because I got like borked out of certain quests and stuff, I was like, yep, not going to go down that rabbit hole again. This is a game that if I jump in and play this, I'm going to play it and have zero interest in trying to do the trophy hunting on this one. I'm going to play it, not going to try and 100% everything, not going to go and do every side quest and clear out every checkbox on the map. I will play it and probably mainline it for the story and call it there. But yeah, if I hope, because I want every game to be a good game for
Absolutely
all of us. So I hope it ends up hitting in the way that people want it to hit. But I like, much like the conversation around Starfield kind of turned into like Starfield needs to be like a game of the generation game.
Yeah.
And that's just not typically the kinds of games that Bethesda makes.
Nope.
They hit on the types of games that Bethesda makes and the types of games that people love, but that was not going to be like the huge system seller. I think this is going to be the same kind of thing. Like, this is not going to be the savior of Ubisoft. It will be a hopefully very good Assassin's Creed game, but I think it's going to be a very Assassin's Creed game in the vein of Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, and your mileage may vary on that.
Yep.
You have anything else in March here?
In March, yes, I do.
Okay.
I have.
First Berserker Kazan.
Yes, First Berserker Kazan. This is a game that is coming out from. Let me just go ahead and make sure I get it correct here. Let me do this here.
Nexon and Neopol.
Yes.
The developers Neopol and publishers Nexon.
Yep. I will say, what the heck? That is not what I wanted. Here we go. Yeah, First Berserker Kazan is from Neopol. I played the demo that came out. Cool thing about this demo, any progress you make in the demo will carry over to main game.
Yeah.
But I will also say this demo gave me a lot to like sink my teeth into. It is several hours.
It's going to be another Liza P for you.
Very much another Liza P.
Well, better, because you didn't like the Liza P demo, right?
No, the Liza P demo sucked. Yeah, I did not care for it. It was giving it the full game a shot and actually like getting into, like, for me, it was, I'm just messing around with this demo and I keep getting hard locked on this boss or this mini boss, and then I face the actual boss and I'm not digging it. I'm not caring about this like block system that they are doing. I want to do more of a dodge or parry version of this. I don't want to do a block system. Getting into the actual game itself and falling in love with the block system for Liza P is what made it work for me. This one is very much less focused on a specific mechanical system the way Liza P was, and far more on you have the opportunity to use the movement to move around, but also use a like parry and block system. Overall, I found myself really falling in love with like the spear combat, funny enough. The spear combat is really phenomenal, and the fact that there are additional like power-ups and abilities for you to use that you gain as you make further progress in each of these weapon trees. So it really is about the different kind of weapon styles. And you have access to all of them. And it's really, really cool. I really dug what I played out of the demo. And it's made me really excited because it's also tied to the DNF universe, which is the Dungeon Fighters online universe, which is something that I played years ago, back in right after high school. I played that game. And I always fell in love with the character stories about this. And so getting to dig into kind of the lore of the Berserker class is very exciting to me.
Nice. Yeah, it being a Souls-like, Sekiro-like, whatever, not going to be my cup of tea, but I heard Blessing talking about it on Kind of Funny Stuff recently, and seems like it'll be kind of a contender in that vein this year. So I hope it works out for you. My next one, I imagine, is probably the next on our list. It's a April 8th game, and that is South of Midnight. This is the Compulsion Games Xbox Game Studio game. that is like so it's from the team behind We Happy Few. It's the like deep South American folklore action adventure game that is in a like pseudo like looks almost claymation-y in its like animation style and art style. It's very much like stop motion-y, I guess.
Stop motion. It's a very specific cell shaded stop motion approach to animation. I'd say.
This just everything. Every time they show this game off, I'm like, cool. I'm already sold. I want to check this game out. I want to see how this plays. And so yeah, I don't have a ton to say on that. And I'm also like looking at the clock and being like, we're almost starts in 45 minutes. So we've got a lot of stuff to go through. So
apologies. Yeah, we had to stop because I needed to use the restroom.
Yep. But yeah, South of Midnight, just the most recent developer direct that Xbox did just continues to show like, oh, this looks like it's going to be a fun, like up my alley kind of thing. It gives me a little bit of Kena Bridge of Spirits vibes to it. And ultimately I like my biggest drawback on Kena Bridge of Spirits ended up being like the combat I didn't like too much. Yeah. But I can push through it for an interesting story, and I can, this seems like a game that I'll be able to, hey, if this ends up being like a lot of like dodge and parry kind of stuff that is never really my vibe, I'll just drop the difficulty down and just kind of push through and really like I'm fascinated by the folklore side of things and the mythos and the mythology, because as much as I grew up loving mythology, one of the things that is always been like disappointing of like America as a newer country is I feel like we never had like a great swath of our own mythology. And so getting this as like, oh no, this is like deep South mythology, like in the bayous and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I'm very intrigued and eager to hear that, since these are going to be stories that I've not seen or heard before. So
I think for me, that is another thing too. When I was reading some stuff about the game, the development of the game and the story, the commentary was, well, these aren't written accounts. Like there aren't written stories about this. It's word of mouth. And it's something that as like white Americans, you and I don't have a lot of exposure to like historic Black culture. And so getting a game that allows us to visualize that as well as experience it through the game is going to be a very exciting thing. But it also is, I think, coming at an important time where the validation of quote unquote other stories about an American experience and about American mythos and life is more important than ever. And the fact that this game is coming out now, I don't feel, I'm not saying I believe in Providence, but the idea this game is coming out is at a very perfect time for it to be making the case that, hey, these are stories that are diverse and inclusive and deserve to be told. Mm-hmm. And like from the action of using like the string of abilities, I'm like, this is very cool, but it also like, it looks like it's also very slow and deliberate combat, which I think is where some people like your mileage may vary on that, but I'm very interested in that kind of more, that more focused level of combat I'm interested in. So.
Yep. Do you know when your next game is on the list?
Yes, give me just one moment because you took that one, was mine as well. Next up for me is going to be not until October. So do you have anything before then?
Damn, you got October stuff on the list? Yeah, I've got a few more here. So the next one for me, Clair Obscure Expedition 33.
Oh, why is that not on? Oh, it is on this thing. I just missed it while I was there. That's one of mine too. So go ahead.
April 24th. Just it looks like it's gonna. It looks to me like a Western dev taking a crack at like a Persona-like.
Yes.
At least in terms of like the style of its combat and stuff like that. And I'm here for that. I don't know if it'll be fully like, here's like the day-to-day gameplay of like a Persona-like. But I'm just fascinated, and it seems like it has a hell of a stacked kind of cast behind it.
Interesting story as well. I'm very fascinated by this idea of this is kind of like a post-apocalyptic story. But then in this latest trailer we got from the Xbox dev showcase, we find out that actually life is still going on. It's just humans who are being affected by this. And so it's a purely human story of 33 is showing up. Anybody over the age of 33 is gonna die.
Yeah.
So You have to stop the painter before we get that countdown to the eradication of all humanity.
Yep.
Very fascinated by that. I love this, this weird, it's fantastical / sci-fi in a way, and I'm very intrigued by that.
Yeah. My next game is May 15th. That is Doom the Dark Ages.
Why did I not pick up? Sorry, I missed some of these games on this list. Yeah. Doom the Dark Ages is definitely up there for me.
Yeah. Another one that I thought got a great showcase in the recent developer direct. And my biggest concern of it is that they were like, it's our biggest game yet. And I'm like, Doom Eternal's biggest problem was that it was too big. So I think that's going to be a problem I have with Doom the Dark Ages as well. But the fact that they really also highlighted that, like, you know, this is very much a ground and pound kind of thing. Like, stand and fight is the you know, the battle ideas that they're pushing with this one. And just seeing the, like, I mean, I'm here for another Doom game. Like, even though Doom Eternal I felt was over long, I still had a ton of fun with Doom Eternal. But yeah, like the real perfect point for me is like Doom 2016 of like great, you know, moment to moment gameplay, great moment to moment combat, and doesn't wear out its welcome. And yeah, Doom the Dark Ages is definitely on my radar, and I'll be excited to see how like the new weapons feel and play. The new like glory kill stuff is always going to be fun. They showed off like you're going to have like mechs and shit here in the Dark Ages and stuff. So yeah,
Doom Eternal was my number 5 game
back in
2020.
Yeah. I can double check and see where it fell for me, but and I'll do that while you talk about Doom Eternal.
Yeah, I'm super excited. This is something that I said I loved about the lore that we found out in Doom Eternal. We found out that our Doom Slayer is in fact the original Doom Slayer from the first Doom game, who gets sucked kind of through that portal to hell at the end of the game. And where he actually ended up was in this kind of like alien planet that it was basically had this own kingdom and this own culture, and the Doom Slayer found himself among them. And this is the story about the Doom Slayer being part of the quote unquote Slayer, like knighthood. And so the idea of it being like, yeah, you're being like, this is the story that was told in the codexes that I fell in love with when I talked about the lore of Doom Eternal. And I brought it up. I was like, and I quote, and it has lore, like a lot of lore, completely optional, but digging into the codex is worthwhile as an incredible sci-fi epic is just sitting under the surface of an already incredible game. The harrowing journey of the Slayer and the fall of the Sentinel Society and the puppet masters behind it all. Doom Eternal gives so much without you ever asking for it, and it has more ready to go whenever you want it. That's like, we're getting that game.
Yeah.
We're getting that story as that game, and it is. And so I feel like it also captures the idea of the stand and fight. This is about the fall of the Sentinel Society that rescued the Doom Slayer, who now the Doom Slayer considers himself a part of it. This is why in Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, he feels like a kind of a man out of time or a man out of place in these hellscape, the hellscape versions of Mars and Earth, because he is. And getting that reveal and like his hatred of demons comes from the trauma that was induced upon him in the original Doom game is awesome. I love that now we're getting this like, he's trying to save the people who saved him, and we know how it'll end, which leads us to kind of like a Halo Reach almost sort of story that they're getting to tell, which is really a really cool thing to try to do, is like tell this the fall of the society in a poetic and beautiful way.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it. I can't wait. I love also the different melee weapons they're giving you to use. Mm-hmm. I'm sad it doesn't look like we're getting as many of the like brutal finishers in comparison to.
Oh, I'm sure there will still be a ton.
We just didn't see them in the direct, I guess. But
it's the thing was very much showing off the new.
Yeah.
The brutal finishers are at this point a staple. You're going to absolutely see. Like you're still going to be ripping the eye out of cacodemons and stuff like that.
I want to take the bladed end of my shield and just rip and tear my way through demons in a bloody finisher.
Well, and I definitely think you will, based on the fact that like some of the non-glory kills are you throwing the shield and it just embedding in a giant's chest and like buzzsawing it while it's in there.
Also, the fact we get a fight in one of those giant mechs that we were like manipulating for the level.
Yeah.
In that last one. I can't wait. Like they have killed it for the last 3 games that they've done. I'm just blown away by how incredible this game looks. I can't wait for it.
Yeah, Doom Eternal was well outside my top 10 in 2020. It fell at 17, with a lot of my like complaints being like, I wish the game's difficulty, even on the easiest mode, didn't ramp up so brutally.
Yes,
in the
that was
end game,
a big thing for them.
and every level being at least 20% too long. So I love that. Yeah, in that developer direct, they showed off, hey, you're going to have customizable settings. You can broaden the parry window, which is absolutely something I need for some of those things because that's not my gameplay style. And so I think the more approachable developer settings are going to absolutely help knock out some of the gripes I had with Doom Eternal. I still imagine it's going to be a lot of way too long stuff and way too big maps, but I'll deal with that and just have a great fun time kicking the shit out of a whole bunch of stuff with crazy metal soundtracks and stuff.
Yep.
So shout out Doom the Dark Ages. Then the last one on my dated list that I will throw out here is Date Everything. It was originally a February 14th release, but it just like in the last day or two got pushed to sometime in June. So it doesn't have like a firm date, but it is a June release at this point. And this is like a visual novel dating sim game where you can date everything. And they basically even called out in their like delay announcement of like, so yeah, we're having to delay because we still need to kind of work our way through a lot of the glitches in the QA list. But don't worry, you'll also be able to date the glitches. So this just seems like it's going to be just dating sim to the absurd extremes, and I'm interested to see kind of how that ends up shaking out. So that's the last of the games on my list that have release dates kind of locked in before we get into like the full TBD stuff. So what's your October one?
My last one is Double Dragon Revive in October 23rd. I was a massive fan of the original Double Dragon.
I feel like that's the only thing that has like a firm release date that far out.
Yes, it is. Here's my thing. I really love the original Double Dragon games. I love the Double Dragon cartoon. I even love the Double Dragon movie, despite the fact how god-awful it is. It is a terrible movie. Awful movie. Love it.
Light spoilers for my 40 for 40 project. Double Dragon and Double Dragon 2 maybe appearing somewhere in the lists there.
Listen, those games are also shout out to Battletoads and Double Dragon, and you like basically it was like a side.
Less of a shout out for Battletoads. I did not keep that on my list. That game fucking sucks.
I mean,
even with Game Genie, Battletoads is bullshit.
It is. It absolutely is. That game is just bad. That said, I love the Battletoads game. I love the Double Dragons games. Love the cartoon. My brother, because I have only one like older brother.
Yeah.
And so for us, it was like, we're the Double Dragons. Like Nick Scarpino on the Aliens in Review recently talked about how him and his brother would get like PVC pipes and pretend to be colonial marines. Mm-hmm. My brother and I would pretend to be Gambit. I would take our sister's like hair picks, put them in my hands and pretend to be Wolverine. We would pretend to be the Double Dragons. Like it was very much like I have those memories. And so Double Dragons means so much to me. Just in like this like fun nostalgia.
Sure.
And does the movie suck? Yes, but I still love the movie.
Yeah. It's same with like Street Fighter. It's like, this is a terrible movie.
Terrible movie.
But Raul Julia is fucking showing up. He is wildly in a different movie than everybody else.
Everybody else
also still have like Ming-Na Wen's in there, and she's good.
She's great. She's good as Chun-Li. Everybody
you have like the absurdity of all-American hero Guile being played by Jean-Claude Van Damme in full Belgian.
Listen, everybody in that movie is really good, but that movie itself is just bad. It's
all of the video game movies at that point were bad.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat also very bad, but like it gets by so much on the fight choreography and the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Double Dragon, not as much. Street Fighter, not as much.
Which is why it works. So I'm really excited for Double Dragon Revive, because anything that I get to be like, hey, Josh, let's you and me sit down and play some Double Dragon. That to me is like something I could see happening in October.
Yeah. Cool. Then we will jump over now into our TBD releases here. And yeah, for these, I would say let's not spend a ton of time on these because again, we got 30 minutes until the Rumble starts, and we still have our Switch 2 segment. So the first one I'll just throw out real quick is Forza Horizon 5 just announced they're coming to PS5. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm probably going to boot that up and spend a bunch more time in Forza Horizon 5 this year, much like The Sims and Sims 2. I'm like, I love those games. And you're giving me a new place to play them, and I can pop some trophies on them. I'll never get the platinum for it, I'm sure, because the things you can do in those, like I guarantee, even with hundreds of hours in Forza Horizon 5 on Xbox, I don't have the 1,000-point gamer score on it, because there are some things I'm just bad at in those games. But it's still going to be a ton of fun. I will be curious. They announced it's going to have cross-play. I didn't read too much into if it's going to have like cross-save, so if like I can just carry over all of my stuff from Xbox, or if I'm going to have to start fresh and build up a new fleet of cars in Forza Horizon 5. But that's definitely the newest one on my radar in terms of like, and it's coming out sometime in the spring, but I don't think it has a firm date yet. But as Xbox starts pushing more and more of their stuff to PlayStation, cool. That just means less and less things that I'll need to, dump money into Game Pass for. But if I do still want to jump money into Game Pass to be like, all right, I'm going to play this game for $20 instead of $60, I will do that too. So that's the first one on my list. I'll throw it to you, Cam. What's one of yours?
First one on my list is 33 Immortals.
It's on mine as well.
Okay. 33 Immortals.
On mine, probably more so just because of the Spiritfarer connection than the gameplay itself. But
as somebody who's played the play test, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Gameplay wise, this game's solid.
It's a Hades-like, effectively.
It's a Hades-like, but it's multiplayer.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you can do it all by yourself, no worries. It's an open world, so anybody who joins you on that server is just doing their own thing anyway.
Yeah.
But it's so much easier and it's so much fun playing with other people around you. Because also, there's no expectation for what role you're going to play. Mm-hmm. So if you ever have like that anxiety of like, well, I don't want to join a party because I don't want to be bad at it and have them like be like I waste their time.
My Final Fantasy 14 qualms, yes.
Yeah.
Like verbatim.
Verbatim. Exactly. That's why I brought it up. I was like, this is by far just like, we are a mob. We are 33 players mobbing our way through these dungeons. And it's awesome. Combat is tight, and it's only gotten better. In the second playtest that I did with them was even better to combat. Mm-hmm. Playing into it, opening it up, and you are chosen servants of heaven, like charging your way through hell in a holy crusade, and you're there to kill demons, get treasure, and just rock out.
Just a wildly different game than Spiritfarer.
100%.
But art style right up my alley.
That's Thunder Lotus, though. Like, Thunder Lotus just does different games.
I mean, Spiritfarer, another spoiler for my 40 for 40, also is on that list somewhere. And like, that game I love so much that I am locked in for whatever Thunder Lotus wants to try and do next, even if it's not my cup of tea necessarily. I still I at least want to check it out.
I've been with them since Sundered. Sundered was I played it at PSX, the like second to last PSX there ever was, and it was a game that I literally I dragged people back to play it. I told Ari, I was like, Ari, I'm not going to stop bugging you until you go play this, and afterwards Ari was like, you were right.
Yeah.
And we started going around. I proselytized my way through PSX, telling people about the good news of Sundered. Sundered is an incredible it's one of the only Metroidvania games I've ever enjoyed playing. I'm not a Metroidvania person.
Sure.
I say that, but it's like also I love Castlevania and I love Metroid, but a lot of times Metroidvanias I feel like they get way up their own ass about how big the scope of their game is.
Yeah, that tends to be the biggest pain point of a Metroidvania is you already know I'm going to have to come back and do a whole bunch of this shit all over again once you give me new abilities. Don't make your map so overwhelming that becomes a chore too.
Yep.
Guacameles are probably my favorite of the genre just because of how tight they keep their map sizes. Next up on my list is it kind of in the same vein of like the Monster Hunter Wild conversation of like, I've got some question marks by this of if this reviews well, I'll check it out, but this is also one I can entirely skip, and that's Borderlands 4, despite it being the follow-up to our 2019 that
gross.
Night game of the year.
Keep that out of your mouth.
Yeah,
that's gross.
It happened. It's the thing that happened. We can't deny it. But yeah, Borderlands 4 on my list of potential things to check out. But it's it's a anticipated because I've played all the other Borderlands games, and we'll see how this one shakes out. If it, because at this point I am kind of over the Borderlands formula unless they do interesting new things to shake it up. What do you have next on yours?
Next on my list is going to be 2XKO.
2XKO?
Yep,
Okay.
this is the League of Legends fighting game. After watching all of Arcane, I am more jonesed than ever for 2XKO. Before I was like, Echo seems like a cool character. Now Echo is my boy. I will die for him. I love that boy. 100%. I am even more stoked than I was before.
Yeah.
And because I know that they have a cool writing team, I'm really hoping they engage in like some really cool story modes for this game.
Yeah. I hate 2XKO because I'm like, how are you supposed to actually say that? Is it 2XKO?
It's
is
2XKO.
it 2 cross KO?
Nope,
Is it
2XKO.
It is 2XKO? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. As somebody not at all tied into the League verse or any of that stuff, the Riot stuff, I'm just like, okay, cool. They're branching out into a fighting thing. Have fun. It's the same for me of like the Deadlock. I don't give a shit that Steam is jumping into that foray. Whatever.
Well, also here's the thing about Deadlock from Steam is technically that game was never announced.
Yeah.
It's still
Again, we don't need to dive down that rabbit hole. It's a thing. I regret mentioning it.
You're good.
Dispatch is another one on my list of
Dispatch is
TV
on my
stuff.
list as well.
Yeah, this is that got shown off at the Game Awards. Seems like it's going to be kind of a choose your own adventure narrative type story, but it has a stacked cast, and they highlighted Aaron Paul and Laura Bailey at the Game Awards. The idea of like a superhero agency, like a superhero like temp / placement agency.
Yes.
I mean, realistically, a dispatch service for superheroes. I'm very curious to see what that's going to look like full gameplay, and is it all narrative, or is there some sort of action elements to it, or what? But yeah, that's definitely that. The trailer was right up my alley in terms of like humor and style, so popped onto my anticipated list for the year. How about you? What's next for you?
For me, next up is Crimson Desert. This is from the Black Desert team. This is more of the single player experience they were showing off. It's had a couple showcase like announcements and like trailers and stuff. Overall, the fluidity of this combat and this world looks really cool. Black Desert is never something I wanted to get into because of like it was an MMO that had just had like the most plethora of types of currencies, and Tony Horvath from Irrational Passions used to just like talk to me about it and be like, yeah, I've been trying to do this and I've spent like 12 million of the in-game currency. And I'm like, that's a lot. He goes, it's okay. You make it like super fast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that just doesn't sound fun to me, Tony. But the world was always very fascinating. It's a beautiful art style too. And like gameplay looks really fluid. So I'm very excited for it. That's what I got to say for it.
Next up on my list, I don't know if it'll actually hit this year, but Fable. As somebody who loved the first couple Fable games on the original Xbox, I'm interested to see what this reboot looks like and how that shakes out. And it's another one I'm anticipating it, but if it doesn't review well, it's easily something I can see skipping. But I like the like style of humor of those games and the like British RPG style of them. So Fable's on my anticipated list.
I don't know if I mentioned it. Dispatch and Fable are both on my list, but I'm just letting you know.
Cool.
Not covering it.
How about you? What's next on yours?
Death Stranding 2. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Like, I'm somebody who I reviewed Death Stranding for our site.
Sure.
I gave it an 8.5, I believe. That's a game that, like, your mileage may vary, but I really enjoyed most of my time with it. So as far as that goes, I'm excited for the sequel.
Yeah, it's as somebody who did not like the slowness of Death Stranding at the end. Like I loved the like once you opened up a zone and could build freely in it. I love that. I hated the slow trudge to get to those points. Yep. So it was very much like a very stop and start kind of experience for me. I
give it an 8.0.
Real slow to get somewhere, and then like once you open up the area, I loved building and like creating the zip line so I could get from one point to another and do crazy quick deliveries and stuff like that. Love that, but hated how much work I had to put in to get to that point. And hopefully Death Stranding 2 is trying to streamline that. I know the director's cut did a lot to streamline
Yes.
those pain points and those obstacles to enjoying the, for me, fun parts of the game. But also, I don't know. Kojima just seems like he's just unhinged and is going to have a weird little, puppet guy on a hip or something like that. And Troy Baker's character has like a crazy guitar weapon or something. I don't know. It's going to be fucking wild.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be wild. This is like what I said about Death Stranding 1 is this is a indie game that has been given a AAA budget.
Yeah.
And it shows. And I think we will probably continue to see that because I think it, like, honestly, it works for Kojima. So keep doing it, man. So I'm excited for Death Stranding 2.
There you go.
Like I said. Yeah.
For me, next on my list is Ghost of Yotei.
On my list as well.
Yeah, I imagine so. As we touched on earlier in the Assassin's Creed Shadow stuff, like now that PlayStation's doing this and Sucker Punch is doing kind of the Ghost of Tsushima, the Ghost of Yotei, that's all I need. I don't really need Assassin's Creed Shadows anymore because like it's somehow Assassin's Creed Shadows became Assassin's Creed Shadows at home to the Ghost of Tsushima and Yotei franchise. And the fact that Erika Ishii is going to be kind of your lead protagonist here, just one more like feather in its cap that is like cool. I love their work in the actual play space and in the VO game space and stuff like that. So
you are like we both like I like Erika Ishii. You have a
I like
there's a professional.
I think mostly because I love the Worlds Beyond Numbers stuff
Yes.
so much and like have put time and effort into following that stuff more so than you have. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say you have a definitely like an affirmation is not what I'm looking for here. Like just a professional affection for her work or for their work. That I think is like you have that further.
Ultimately, I believe they accepts any pronouns.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure, want to respect it, especially. Listen, I'm bad at they thems. I've historically been bad at they thems, so I'm just always trying to make sure I'm covering my bases. Because, like I mentioned up at the top, like with we're at a time where that's more important than ever. So,
yep.
So Ghost of Yotei is surely up there for me. What they showed,
it's 300 years after the events of Ghost of Tsushima, so it's like, okay, cool, we're gonna and
way to knock that out of the park. By the way, with just like we're not doing a Ghost of Tsushima 2. This is a different game.
Yeah,
love that.
Absolutely.
Especially what they did with Legends, I think is proof in the pudding that they are great at that. So,
yep. How about next on your list?
Elden Ring, Night Rain. This is a question mark one for me. I don't know how it's going to go. I have been accepted into the playtest for it, so I will have more information about whether or not this is going to be a pickup for me this year. I'm looking forward to it just because I think it'll be fun to play with friends. But this is definitely one of those where it's like, this is going to be a multiplayer experience. This is not going to be a solo experience.
Yeah.
And it's much more of that boss rush while you're trying to also deal with like a time crunch from the storm coming in. Yeah. So I'm curious about that setup more than just about anything else.
Sure. For me, I mean, I'll throw it out here as like I guess I'll probably play it, but I'm not like particularly amped for it. But Grand Theft Auto 6, if it hits this year, it's like, yeah, it's going to be another Grand Theft Auto. Of course, I'll check out Grand Theft Auto. I'm really only going to ever care about the single player stuff. So regardless of whatever they're doing online, isn't going to do anything for me. But getting to be in a Grand Theft Auto world back in Vice City, I think is going to be a ton of fun. And and like this more than anything else might be the thing that, if I ultimately look and be like, okay, yeah, that'll be worth playing on a PlayStation 5 Pro. Maybe I'll, pick that up. But I imagine it'll play just fine on the base PlayStation 5 too. So, no crazy, like, especially since we haven't seen anything from it in over a year. Like we saw we got the release or the announced trailer at the end of 2023, and then 2024 was silent.
Which I think is typical that you'd expect that from Rockstar. So
so much of this comes down to like, well, they said in 2023 that it was going to be a 2025 game. We'll see if it actually hits this year or not.
For me, what they've done with the GTA Online stuff to continue kind of like the story of Los Santos and kind of like how it evolves, I'm very excited about like what kind of story content we could get out of Grand Theft Auto 6. But this is also a bit more of like I don't even know if it's going to come out this year. So
yeah. for me after that, Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra.
On my list as well.
One on my list. It's another one like we haven't seen a ton of. This is the one where I believe it's basically like a 4-character kind of lead thing of you got Captain America, you got Black Panther, and then like each of those factions has like another person on them. Is that right? Am I thinking about the right game?
I don't know about another person on that, but I recall it being. I thought it was just Captain America and Black Panther.
I think it's like you have like somebody in Cap's, crew, and then like another Wakandan soldier, I think, with them. I mean, like the image on it is 4 people, so you've got like,
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, you got a soldier, and you got like fighting alongside Gabriel Jones of the Howling Commandos and Nanali, a Wakandan spy embedded in occupied Paris. Captain America and the 1940s Black Panther, must overcome their differences and blah blah blah. So again, we haven't seen a ton from this Skydance game, but if it comes out this year, I'll be interested to see kind of how it shakes out. What we have seen looks freaking gorgeous.
Yeah.
So it'll be a matter of like, are those just like cut scenes, or is that actually like indicative and representative of the game style itself and the moment-to-moment action? So that's that one for me. What's your next one?
Next one for me is going to be Mecha Break. This is the one I did the play test for last year. I had an incredible fun time with it, but most of that play test was just multiplayer. So, and there is a actual campaign to take you through it with the different factions that you could kind of pull the mechs from. And I'm really curious to see what we get going forward with that. I had an absolute blast with it. I loved the crap out of it. I did I believe I did a couple streams of it as well during that time. And it was just a incredibly fun way of playing this game. It's very much Armored Core style combat. But the fact that you could be a fighter, like transforming fighter jet, was awesome as hell. So a lot of different mechs that you can pull from. They're instead of doing like big customization, they are instead just doing, hey, these are kind of our quote unquote class of mech that you use, and you can kind of customize out as you feel fit.
Nice.
So
my next one, right after that alphabetically, Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater.
Also mine.
Somebody who poured a ton of time going back and replaying Metal Gear Solid 5 last year. And that having been really the only Metal Gear I've ever really fully played. I started trying to play through like the kind of the remaster collection one, namely like Metal Gear Solid 1, but didn't probably got maybe halfway through that game before I was like, I'm going to bounce off and do other things.
Sure.
A modern Snake Eater might pull me in. This is another one that's going to be very reliant on like the, how it's going to be a mix of like, how well do people think the gameplay, remake works? And then also, is it faithful enough that like the Kojima fans give it their stamp of approval, or is it going to be this lost something in translation because Kojima wasn't involved here?
I think for me, the most recent trailer they did for it was like a shot-for-shot remake of like the experiences that you're like running through and playing, and the cutscenes are shot-for-shot remakes. I do not anticipate them being unfaithful to that original game. This is a true quote-unquote remaster in that they are just taking the base game, remaking it in a modern engine, and doing that with, I believe, just gameplay improvements that you'd expect from post-Metal Gear Solid 5. Sure. Is the vibe I've been getting from it, and I hope that's what we get, because that's what I think it needs to be.
Cool.
So,
mixtapes, the next one on my list.
Gotcha.
This is the like summer, adventure kind of thing from the team behind Artful Escape, where you see like people, skateboarding down, fields and stuff like that. It's going to have vibes for days. And if it hits this year, I think it'll be a fun one to jump into as somebody who loved the Artful Escape, and I think it's another one, like in particular, it will have fun nostalgia vibes for like, my generation, as well as just probably a killer soundtrack stuff to enjoy and play along with. So mixtape, don't have a ton to say on that one, but I hope it comes out this year, and I'm looking forward to it. What's next for you?
Next up for me is Moonlighter 2.
Okay. I love we're just kind of like going through.
Yeah, we're going through that list
one after the other alphabetically a little bit. Yeah.
Moonlighter 2 for me, the Endless Vault. As somebody who's recently been replaying Moonlighter 1,
That's the roguelite where you're basically like the shopkeeper and you go into the dungeons and then sell your shit that you find, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I jumped in and briefly played Moonlighter 1 probably back when like Greg originally talked about it or something like that.
It's really fun. It's a lot of fun. It's all gameplay, really not too much story to it, which is why I've kind of like fallen off of it a little bit. But it's a really fun game. So Moonlighter 1 I'm talking about. Moonlighter 2, I'm very excited to see what this team has been doing in the meantime.
Yeah.
As they've been building this game. So
yeah, that's a good one. I didn't have it on my list, but it is one. Given that I liked the first one, especially, I'm a weird person who I just talked about this with Cam Hawkins on Blue Sky a little bit. The first Dragon Quest I ever played was Dragon Quest IV, Dragon Warrior 4, as it was released on the NES. And one of my favorite chapters in that game is where you're playing as like a merchant in a weapon shop, and like the opening chunk of his chapter is you just go to work. People come in and buy your stuff, and you could they'll sell stuff to you, and you can kind of choose how much you're going to give them, and then you are reselling stuff in the weapon shop, and then you go off into your own adventure to get stuff and because you're going to kind of break off and start your own traveling merchant kind of thing. Taloon was the name of the character on the original NES version. I believe he's Torneko in proper better localizations of modern era, but yeah, like I love that, and Moonlighter is basically just that but in full game form. So yeah, shout out to that. Next one, right after that on our list, Mouse PI for Hire. This is it's one that I almost forgot about, but like looking at it, I was like, oh, I think I know what that game is. And this is the game where it's one of those games that's like taking full advantage of the fact that Steamboat Willie, Mickey Mouse, is now public domain kind of thing. So you're playing as that style, that era of animated mouse character,
sure,
but it's a first-person shooter. You're running around. It's like, in addition to that kind of as a jumping off point, like it's all 1930s animation style stuff in this, noir first-person shooter kind of animated vibes. And I'm just like, I'm very curious to see how this ends up shaking out as a final product. And its initial hook and look is something that is certainly attractive to me in the same way that Cuphead was, even if Cuphead's ultimate gameplay isn't really my cup of tea. I love the like hand-drawn throwback to like Max Fleischer, animation style and stuff like that. So yeah, shout out to Mouse PI for Hire. It's very much a question mark of like, if it reviews well, I'll give it a shot and check it out when it comes out. If it's kind of it's a one-trick pony and doesn't really do anything new beyond that, I'll probably let it slide. But it's there in my anticipated bucket. I only have one more. How about you? In terms of the TBD bucket of things.
3 more.
Okay, then hit me with yours.
Ninja Gaiden 4.
Cool.
That new trailer definitely sold me on it. I'm down for it. I never really got into the Ninja Gaiden games post NES / post playing it on my my cousin's game. What is it? The one that ate all the batteries. The Game Gear.
Boy?
No, the Game Gear.
The Game Gear. Yeah.
Yeah, he had it Ninja Gaiden for the Game Gear, or maybe that was Shinobi. I think it might have been Shinobi. Anyway, regardless. Ninja Gaiden 4 looks really cool. I'm down for it. New character to play also. Why not,
Yeah. I like the trailer for it. Everything looked good in the developer direct. It was a great fun announcement, and coupled with the and Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is out now kind of thing. But yeah, Ninja Gaiden's never been my jam. The only time I've ever really played Ninja Gaiden was when I did the Ninja Gaiden that's on the NES Classic as part of like the Let's Play series I did of playing through every game on there, and I was terrible at it. I'm like, this is why this game would not have clicked for me back then. It doesn't click for me now. It doesn't click for me then.
Yep.
But yeah, shout out to fans of the series getting a new Ninja Gaiden this year. My last one here in TBD land, before we jump into Switch stuff, or before we hear your last couple and then jump into Switch stuff, I imagine this one's also on your list, The Outer Worlds 2.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. It's another one that I don't know if Obsidian's going to be able to hit both of them this year with Avowed, but the fact that Avowed was supposed to come out last year and just got pushed to give it a little bit more breathing room leaves me hope that we'll also get The Outer Worlds 2 this year. And much like we talked about with Avowed, like Obsidian's humor specifically with The Outer Worlds was just so much fun, and like the absolute satirical takedown of like corporate bullshittery in a future space situation, especially I don't know if you watched any of the Secret Level stuff that's on Prime.
Not yet, no.
The Outer Worlds episode of the Secret Level is just chef's kiss. It's probably my favorite of the bunch that I've seen. I haven't watched all of them, but I've watched most of them at this point. And it was just like, oh, I love what they did with the like Outer Worlds corporatification of things for that secret level episode. So yeah, if it's anywhere in the vein of the humor and fun of the original Outer Worlds, I'm very much looking forward to Outer Worlds 2. What are your last couple?
My last one from that list is Skate. I'm a big skater, Tony Hawk fan. Skate is has never really been my go-to for skating games, but with the future of Tony Hawk Pro Skater on the shelf for good, it looks like for them like long term, this is the closest thing we're going to get to a new skating game. So fuck it, we ball. Let's go.
Cool. So then, yeah, our last little category here. We got about 5-6 more minutes to go before we gotta jump.
We have a hard out that we gave ourselves.
Go enjoy a Royal Rumble here. Is the Switch 2 obviously coming out this year as well? So kind of any games that were specifically anticipated for the Switch 2 and where that may fall in things. I'll start this off with the idea. Mario Kart being the only thing that they've shown really on their like initial announce video thing. I'm here for a new Mario Kart. Somebody that I played like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but didn't follow when they did a whole new branch of like expansion pass stuff for it. So yeah, it's been a while since I've really done any Mario Kart stuff. Looking forward to that if it comes out. What do you have for Switch 2 stuff?
For me, Switch 2 stuff is I'm looking forward to playing Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition on it.
Okay.
I never got into the Xenogear games really, or the Xenoblade games very much. I own Xenoblade 2, but I played the intro to it and I was like, this is cool, and then I've never gone back to it. Next one for me, though, is Metroid Prime 4.
Okay. Yeah, I have that on my list.
Yeah.
As I've not played any of the Metroid Primes, I have Metroid Prime Remastered for the Switch one, but I just never actually like booted it up and jumped into it. But maybe Metroid Prime 4 Metroid Prime 4 Beyond will get me to jump in there. Did you play any of the previous ones?
Yes, I played Metroid Prime 1 before. Okay. It was very good.
Cool.
Next up, I think is going to be on both our lists, Pokemon Legends ZA.
I threw it on my list as like a last one because I didn't play Arceus. But it's been a while since I've jumped into a proper Pokemon game. So yeah, if Pokemon Legends ZA doesn't have like all sorts of crazy, performance issues at launch, like some of the last couple have had, it's definitely one of like, maybe that'll be what gets me back into a Pokemon game. Yeah. But yeah, Arceus, you loved that one, right?
It was in my top 10. It had a fall off because the story just wasn't strong enough for the kind of game it was trying to be. I'm hoping they correct that with Z-Day.
Yeah. A new 3D Mario, presumably we'll get one of those this year. I don't know if it'll be a Super Mario Odyssey 2, but the successor to a Super Mario Odyssey, whatever new thing they do in that kind of mainline series. I hope we get this year, and I will be there for it, as like Super Mario Odyssey itself, an incredibly fun and favorite game of mine on the Switch, but it is so overwhelming that I just never think to go back to it because I'm like, I'm never going to get those 999 moons again. So why even bother starting down that journey? But yeah, I mentioned this, and I think you have like a wild prediction, so maybe we'll end on that. But I think, we've heard rumors for a while of like a Zelda Wind Waker remaster for the Switch, and I think maybe they're holding off until Switch 2 at this point, and it'll probably be like, they'll release, it'll probably release on the Switch, so if you only have a Switch 1, you can play it, but they'll do it like coinciding with the Switch 2 launch. And my rationale there is very much, Wind Waker was released on the GameCube and then remastered for the Wii U, and that's the only places we've seen it. Notoriously, Nintendo's 2 worst selling consoles of all time, save the Virtual Boy. So I imagine they want to put a game like that in front of larger eyes, and there's probably an audience clamoring for it, especially since they've been doing like a one Zelda game release a year, and I imagine we're probably a while out from whatever the proper next beyond Tears of the Kingdom will be. So yeah, and then the last little one I have before we jump into your maybe major prediction is like maybe this is where we finally get that Final Fantasy IX remaster.
Yep.
Fingers crossed. I would love to see that, but who knows?
My wild prediction is this, ladies and gentlemen. Hear me out for a moment. All right, let me cook just for the few minutes we have left before we have to do our heart out.
Remember to factor time in for an outro.
Yep. We have seen Echoes of Wisdom. We saw Link's Awakening done in this chibi art style. We both talked about our feelings about it on our Game of the Year stuff for how we both felt about Echoes of Wisdom. Hear me out.
You thinking of a Link to the Past remake?
I'm thinking Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
Done in this fashion.
Oh, in this fashion.
In this fashion.
I don't know how that would work.
Here's the thing.
I think we'll see an Ocarina of Time remaster at some point in the Switch 2 era.
This is what I'm thinking. Instead of like, hey, are we going to pour our resources into trying to up-res and redo Ocarina of Time, or can we do something fun with this new style? Are we just going to be doing this fun style as not serious games or as kind of like, these side games? Instead of it, let's go ahead, let's do that. And let's also add in some cool stuff, like maybe doing some get some Sheik content in there. Anyway.
So you're thinking more the game in terms of just the art style, but it'll still be like 3D adventure. It's not going to be moving screen to screen like Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom would be.
I could go for either or.
Okay.
I didn't really think too deeply about how I'm just like, give us the chibi style, but like with Ocarina of Time's game that you're playing in. Mm. Whether it's done screen to screen, because you could easily take this the 3D layout, flip it onto the top down version and do screen to screen that way anyway. Because if you remember how that game is broken up, it's broken up into these broken up sections that you go through, and then you get a loading to that next section.
Yeah, but so much of the gameplay is
3D based and first
3D
person
based
shooting.
and Navi going on and locking onto some enemy
Sure.
that you can shoot a slingshot at or something like that. So it'd certainly be interesting.
It came to me while I was preparing for what I was thinking. I was like, what if they did this? And I'm like,
right.
It could be cool. It could be cool. That's it.
I'll give you that as a wild prediction indeed.
I said, wild prediction.
With that, that's what we're anticipating or what we're excited for here in 2025 in the months ahead. We will go ahead and call it there. Thank you for joining me, Cam. You can follow Cameron at revcabot.bsky.social. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I want to give a massive shout out to that neighbor your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man?
Yeah, that D Plus show.
That D Plus show that we just did. It was a lot of fun getting to talk about a new D Plus show, and just Disney Plus show and having just a fun time with that. So that's my shout out.
Cool. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. Echoing that, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man was a lot of fun. Next week's episode will be we're going to do That Thing You Do upon Cameron's recommendation. So check that out if you are so inclined. And then if you missed any of it, obviously we had all of our 2024 kind of Game of the Year, Movie of the Year, all of our best of 2024 stuff go up there in January. So feel free to go back and listen to any of those episodes, as well as the handful of supplemental written things that we put up on the website in the last month. Go check out any of that fun stuff. You follow all of us, and you follow me at trevorjstarkey.bsky.social. I don't think I gave my own plug. You follow all of us over at that nerdy site, .bsky.social or thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please remember to rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for listening. Stay nerdy, be good to each other, and we're going to go watch the Royal Rumble.
Let's get ready to rumble!